All right. Guys, do you want to turn around and maybe do a share with the group? Because that was like a sort of 6 minute, it's a self-love exercise. Because although you're singing to someone, you are reflected back in their eyes. And so I'm interested to know how that felt for you.
Oh, lots of tears.
Lots of tears, yeah. Anyone else?
Oh.
I cried so hard in my one. Like I was saying, I did this at a retreat about 6 or 7 years ago, and I got the one woman that I felt no resonance with. I got the one woman who was the one woman in the room that I was like, anyone but her. There she was in front of me for this eye gazing exercise, and I shat myself. I was just like, oh my God, why her? Why her? Why didn't I get shot? Sat down, and she's just been really irritating me the whole weekend, which is so unretreat like. But sat down, and then and she looked at me, and she did this smile, and I thought, oh, no, now I'm gonna cry. I was so nervous. I was like shaking, and I knew I'd been looking for my tears, and I knew that they were about to come in a flood, and they were going to come for this woman. And I was just like, God, just swallow me up, kill me now. And I sat down, and we started singing, and she just looked at me with such love, and she held my hands, and I just started sobbing, and I couldn't stop for the whole song. And she just stared at me with such love, and she sang straight into my eyes with such love. And I just thought, how did I get you so wrong? It was incredible. I was just like, I've so misjudged you. And it was the perfect person for me to have was her, because it showed me my judgment. My judgment was reflected back at me, and I had shame for that. And she was an amazing woman, and she held the most incredible space for me. And I literally was like, for 6 minutes while she sang to me with such love, never taking her eyes off me. And every time I looked up, it was like, and I just would go off again, and it was just mortifying. I couldn't stop, but I felt so amazing afterwards. I felt so seen and held, and I really had a huge lesson in judgment that day. So that was my experience.
How did she feel afterwards?
That's a really good question. I don't know. You don't know. He gave me a big hug, and she was really, really sweet. And after that, we became Facebook friends. No, I wouldn't say we stayed with you. It was a beautiful lesson. Put it that way.
Did you sing into Azul's eyes, Nita?
Pardon?
You sing into Azul's eyes.
Yes, I did, actually. He's like, I've been telling you this for years.
That's beautiful. Okay, so does anyone else want to share anything about it?
That was amazing. We had like an absolutely beautiful connection. So it's just, because you see so much oneness in the other person. Yeah. The most beautiful thing. That was really special.
I
I agree.
But you see their pain, you see their trauma,
Yeah.
and you see your own in them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you see,
Yeah.
you actually see.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really don't do much of, is we don't look at each other in the eyes. That's right. We really don't hold space. And even if you think about just when you're greeting someone, you know, in a shop or wherever you go, you know, if you actually say, oh, hi, you know, how's it going? And, you know, I really make an effort, even at the deli counter at the supermarket, to really look at the person and say, can I please have this one here, and this one here, and thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. And I make this real eye contact. Because they take that away with them for the day, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So that's a reflection back to them of being seen, and they feel unsafe being seen. And that's, you know, that's very telling as well, isn't it? About where someone is in their own self-love journey, that they feel so threatened to actually be seen. So yeah, I mean, it's a really big visibility exercise that I find really powerful, and it shows us how much we really don't see and how little eye contact we make with people. And how as soon as we notice someone, if, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you're talking to someone and they make real eye contact with you, you tend to drop your eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really hard to hold their gaze because it starts to feel really uncomfortable, and it feels so personal, right? If someone's really talking to you and holding your gaze, and especially like I've had workmen really hold my gaze, and I've got really uncomfortable because it feels intimate, right? And this is the whole intimacy thing. Like intimacy is this intimate relationship with ourselves. Like we've become so disengaged from ourselves from lifetime after lifetime of having our gifts shut down, of being traumatized, of being traumatized to the point that we have traumatized others. Okay, like that's a really big one to hold, because we always just assume everything's been done to us. But actually, in past lives, we have been traumatized to the point where we have traumatized others. And some of the shame that we carry in this lifetime is old shame. And that's, you know, a really big one to work through. We don't like to think that we've ever been the perpetrator. We don't like to think that we've ever been the one doing the bad thing. And so we do all this past life stuff around what's been done to us, but we find it really hard to tap into any past life stuff that we have done to others. And yet, everyone that is doing a bad thing has been traumatized, right? So we have to learn how to forgive. And we have to, most of all, learn how to forgive ourselves. And that's a journey in itself, because we have to learn how to be intimate with ourselves, and we have to learn how to forgive ourselves. Because what we do is we go through this big journey in learning how to forgive others. And then we are this incredibly harsh critic of ourselves. And we feel like we don't deserve to be forgiven by ourselves, right? We have this real block, like the biggest block to unblocking our gifts is our inability to be intimate and forgive ourselves. And and it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So we've got all these different threads that come in on this. And so in terms of our ancestral and soul lines, the way it's been shown to me is, this is how it was shown to me in a meditation one day. So you have the soul line, and our soul line is our Akashic. It's, you know, it's our source divinity and the Akashic line of everything that has ever happened to us, so every experience we've ever had. And then we have our ancestral line, okay? So what happens is, you know, we die, maybe, and this is just how I see it, and it comes through different people, but I think we have some of the thread in general. But so
Thank you.
We die, and we go out and we have this experience of reflection, right? So we're out here and we're reflecting, and for me, what I saw is that I get out here, and it's, you know, I'm here and it's so heavy and I'm dragging myself, and it's like, oh my God, here I go again, kind of thing. And then I get out here, and then as soon as I'm out here, I'm seeing the big picture and I'm reflecting, and I'm like, oh my God, I've still got so much to do, and I'm straight back down. So I don't have much time between lives. I keep coming back like a shooting star back to earth, and it's like, no, I've still got so much to do, and I come back down, and it's like, oh, I don't know again, kind of. So, but when we're choosing how to come through the birth canal, we are taking two things. We're taking our soul line of trauma and lessons, and we are we're saying, okay, you know, I have had sexual trauma over and over and over, and it has been a thread on my soul line, and I still haven't cracked it. I'm picking a life. I'm going to pick the ancestral line that's going to bring through sexual trauma again, because it has to be highlighted. If it's not highlighted, how do I know what to work through? Because we don't remember, right? We've got no memory yet. We don't have no memory. We've got no memory on our soul line. We choose to forget when we come here. This is part of the contract of birth. Apart from a few weirdos.
Not looking at you.
Not usually. So we've got no memory, right? So if it's not highlighted, how are we going to know what our soul line problem is? Okay, maybe our soul line problem is a womb problem, and or a childbirth problem, or you know, boundaries just over and over, like a violence, you know, ending up in violent relationships over and over and over. So the way it starts on the soul line way back here, you know, because we've been in density for so long, so the planet's been very, very dense. So we've had lifetime after lifetime of very little choice, okay? We've had lifetimes where maybe we've been born into a poor country and sold as a child and used as a sex slave, and that's created a mark on the soul line of trauma, and it's a scar basically. And then we go out here and we say, oh, I've got to work through that one, but for quite a bit of here, it's just like we've just got to get through the density. We've got to get through the density to get to this point of evolution where the healing can begin. And then you kind of get to here and you go, you're out here after all these lifetimes, and you come back out and you're like, okay, we're lightening up. I'm going to come into a family that is going to really challenge me, but I'm going to have an opportunity to get out this time. I'm going to have an opportunity to heal something, because there's going to be someone that comes into my life at some point, and they're going to give me this amazing opportunity to discover something about my soul. And so that person comes along, and maybe just with what you're carrying, you make this conscious choice in the moment not to listen, not to do anything, not to heal. And so you come back out, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've got to go back. I've got to try again, right? And this is what we do. We highlight something in our lifetime, we choose it, no matter how traumatic it is, no matter how awful it is. We're choosing it at this point because we've got access to healing. Okay, so at some points we just had to get through the density, right? We just said, okay, I'm going to go in, I'll hold that vessel and help it through the density, because, you know, we're just leaving a light drop, and all those light drops have gradually lifted us to the point where healing is possible. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so when we're coming in, we're not only choosing our soul line, but we're choosing an ancestral line. Okay. Now, I mean, it's quite interesting because we do all this ancestral work, and we go back over generations. We might never have actually been there through any of those generations on that ancestral line, but when we're coming in, we say, okay, you know, here's the lesson. I'm going to pick a family that's going to highlight the lesson so that I can activate healing. And what I also want to do is I want to take a piece of my soul's energy and leave it on that ancestral line. Okay. And so you pick this ancestral line to ride in on that you may or may not have history with, but you're choosing it to leave your light through, to bring your light into. And then as the soul line and the ancestral line merge, you get the DNA at the birth canal that creates, well, it obviously comes in sooner, you know, out here. And then it comes through the birth canal. You're leaving energy within the womb of your soul line and activating that person that you're coming through. Even if you don't see that, it's the slow, subtle way that we evolve out of density. And then this is the DNA, which is a mix of the soul line and ancestral lines. That's how it's shown to me. And the DNA becomes the vessel that you live in this life. And you then become responsible for a healing here and a healing here. Got that?
What do you think about C-sections then? Not good question. About what?
I don't think, it doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any difference. Lots of people who have had a lot of sexual trauma are in, they have a block in their birth canal. They're unable to bring the baby through, and so lots of them end up having C-sections. And it doesn't matter. You're bringing the light into the womb. Yeah, but just it's kind of like the you know, I do see something in the birth canal, but I feel that the baby brings it one way. I don't think it matters.
I'm just thinking with the amount of movement of people across the globe. I mean, I lived to look in New Zealand, the mixing. I'm just thinking of my grandson, the pot, genetic pot. He's almost global.
Yeah, they are global now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And we're also global because of our soul lines. You know, we've got Egyptian and Indian, and you know, and so when people say to me, like, is it bad to get you know, a Māori design, like, you know, if you're going to go and get something, is it bad? And I say, you know, it's ridiculous to say that anything is sacred only to that blood now, because we are so global. And if I've got an affinity with the Wataha, then I've got them on my soul line, you know, and so that holds the same sacredness and meaning to me as a Pakeha who can't speak Māori as it does to a full Māori person, of which there are none even more anyway. But yeah. Yeah, well, that's just my feeling, and you don't have to agree with it. Oh, you do? Oh, right. Right. Oh, okay, great, yeah. I'm just saying there's up until now, we've had a lot of shamans, we've had a lot of gurus, we've had sacred knowledge, and you know, even within Reiki, everything I learned, all the symbols and stuff, I learned on blackboards that were immediately wiped out. If I forgot a symbol, it was so sacred, we were never allowed to commit it to paper. If I forgot a symbol, I had to get on a train and go back to my German teachers, and I had to sit there with them and relearn it. This lifetime. That's how I learned. I learned it as deeply sacred knowledge. The reason we have held deeply sacred knowledge for so long is not because it's we're pious and they're not allowed access to it. It's because it was so dangerous to have it in the past.
Yeah.
We were witches, we were tortured, we were, you know, we were not allowed to use our little herbs to heal that person. That was witchcraft. Like, so we went into hiding. The Essenes with Jesus were deeply, they were so secretive that they were blockchain cells, and you only ever knew what your cell was doing unless you were in the very rare top cells of the Essene chain. And they had communities in certain formations around this you know, area, and certain very high leaders would move between the blockchain cells and bring teachings, but they were so endangered from religion and the churches because they were so threatening, because they brought light to everyone and they were inclusive, not exclusive, and they believed that the power was held by the people and that everyone had access to divinity. And this was such unbelievable knowledge to be sharing that they were being taken out as soon as they were found, basically, because the church, they were such a threat to the church. So when your life is in constant danger because of knowledge that you hold, it becomes secret, right? It becomes sacred, it becomes hidden, it becomes the occult, right? And now we're at this incredible, and it still was even when I was young, you know, because that's how I learned it. I learned it as the occult, basically. And now we're coming into this incredibly unique time on the planet where it's safe. It's safe to bring it out. And it's becoming accessible to everyone. And of course, not everyone knows how to hold it correctly. So you've got everyone out there, you know, running their retreats and doing their, you know, doing their thing. That's fine, because we are always attracting in the frequency that we are currently at, right? So if I held a retreat 5 years ago, I would have attracted in a completely different type of person. And now I'm attracting in like a room full of unbelievably powerful people. Like, you know, unbelievably powerful. And it blows my mind that I can stand up here and you actually think I have something to say. Right? It's just unbelievable. But that's why things were hidden. Yeah. Of course. No, crack on.
There's this healing that's, you know, there's soul line within the ancestral. Would you say that there's something about this lifetime or that what's happening on earth at the moment that we're doing a lot at the moment within our lifetime? We're like speeding up, so
They are speeding up.
so we're like doing a lot on
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And we're starting to work in a more multidimensional way consciously.
Yes.
So instead of unconsciously working in the astral, we're starting to do more and more conscious work. So we are not only working within the physical plane now, we're working within the astral planes at a conscious level, which is, you know, like really expanding us.
Some shifts that might be
Yep.
doing a lot of like healing and our sleep. Also, would you say is it possible to like break those contracts or
Yes, absolutely. This is
be
the,
like actually I'm just like now.
Yep.
Right.
yep, yeah, that's old hat, yeah.
Breaking which contracts?
Okay, so we have, say, okay, say, for example, I marry a guy that murdered me 500 years ago. And we've gone out here and he's just a soul that came to play a dense role. And I say, okay, you know, we want to heal. Obviously, you know, this is all done from a very high perspective, obviously. But, you know, and so we agree to come back in this lifetime. But he's still struggling to get out of density. And so maybe, you know, maybe I'm in the rescuer position and I'm trying to pull him out because he's riddled with shame on his soul line. And it plays out through aggression and other things in this lifetime. And so I go into the rescuer mode and I'm trying to pull him out, but he won't let me pull him out. And so at some point, I have to say, okay, I'm breaking this contract. I'm cutting it and I'm ending it here because I still have to keep growing. And if you're not coming with me on the contract, I'm going to have to leave you there and carry on because otherwise I'm stuck too. Right? As long as you are in the rescuer, as long as you're in the codependent, as long as you're an aggressor, you're stuck. Right?
And that is the story for a lot of us.
Absolutely.
I understand probably what you're saying. I'm just going flesh, what if it's a child, what if it's here.
Doesn't make any difference. All our children, our parents, our lovers, they are sentient beings in their own right. Alexia's ancient. She's my child. I'm going to mentor her the best I can. But she's ancient. She's been my master. So if she suddenly became, you know, a drug addict and she was like stealing off me and beating me up, am I going to put up with that because she's my daughter? Hell no. At some point, she has to walk her own journey. At some point, I have to be able to let her go. And that's what's been really interesting about the last 2 years, right? Is we have had to learn how to let people close to us go. We've had to learn how to just cut the cords and say, you're free. Because actually what we do is we hold on to people like this, you know, and we're stuck to them and we're suffocating them with our energy field. We're like holding on so tight, thinking that we're trying to help them, and actually we're suffocating them, right? If we can't just let everyone go, then, you know, we've still got work to do. No attachments. And I know that's easier said than done. Obviously, I make it sound really simplistic, but it's the journey of our life, right? Is to learn how to let go. So I had this experience with Sarah. I wasn't in channel, but it was our past life experience, past life regression that she did on me. Which, you know, it's always really interesting because Sarah's, you know, we channel. And so, you know, we go out pretty quickly with each other. So, anyway, I had this past life regression, and I had this, some of you might know this, but I had this experience where I was just a gas. I was just consciousness. So I didn't actually have form. It was before I had form. And I was just like, oh, wow. And Sarah's like, what do you look like? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, well, where are you? And I'm like, and it was like I was just nothing. It was like I was just atmosphere. So I was just consciousness. I was very conscious. And I was looking down at Earth, and I saw like a TV screen. It's like I was looking at this old TV, and yeah, and I saw this person, and they had this crazy big poodle on their lap, and the TV was actually Earth, right? So I was looking through this lens of consciousness at Earth, and I could see this person, and they had this huge poodle, and it's not my favorite dog, but again, judgment issues. And but anyway, I remember the one thing that I could see was this person and the dog looking at each other with such love. And I was just looking, and I remember being like swooping down a bit and being like, what is that? And they were looking and gazing in each other's eyes, and I could see the person felt this incredible love. But I felt like that, like this all the time. But this was different. This was individualized love. And it was a connection between two souls. And in that moment, I knew that I wanted to experience that. And that's why I chose to come to Earth. I wanted to experience individualized love. And so I chose to come down and try and form the same connection so that I could understand at a soul level what this felt like.
Yeah,
Teddy's
not
on
poodle.
Teddy's bigger.
What you say?
Sorry. Now, can I ask you, there's a lot more other species. It's more obvious, even,
It's not just
I mean,
humans.
yeah, yeah. Sort of
Yeah, I mean, I
non-human.
might choose to come to Earth, but I've also been Lyran, you know. So I've also been over there. I've also been in the, what I call, I don't know what it was called, but I call it the time before. That's how it always gets told to me. The time before density. And the time before density on Earth was a wonderful time. And yeah, this is like Atlantis and Lemuria. And, you know, this ties in with the Bible, right? Because this is like, the time before is like Eden, right? The Garden of Eden. And everything was very beautiful. We were in advanced civilizations. We had access to incredible technologies. We had amazing wisdom. We had very long lives. And then, you know, these corrupted energies came in And, you know, the whispers started and the corruption began and we started to fall. And many of us could see what was happening. And I saw this really clearly when we did the soul line healing on my online retreat last year. Many of us could see what was happening and most of the beings left. Most of them got the hell out before all the portals and stargates were shut down. And I decided to stay. Claire stayed, Sarah stayed, you know, like a bunch of us stayed. And so a lot of us decided to stay, and we went around closing everything down, and we knew where everything was headed, this long line of density. But we made this commitment to try and help humanity. And so all along here, we've been interfered with genetically, right? So we've had one thing after another. And I've had a past life, another past life experience where I was this big kind of caveman. I was a huge bear of a man, and I was like suddenly walking through the forest like this to a ship, and I got on the ship. Sound familiar? And I was genetically modified on the ship, and then I came back off. And that was the benevolent ETs trying to help us evolve a little bit faster out of density, but it's still taken, you know, tens of thousands of years. That's the fast road. Because, you know, it's evolution. Like we can only move so fast. Our DNA has to catch up, right? So we've been interfered with by, you know, here, we had lots of interference with non-benevolent ETs, and then we've had a lot of help since then, where we've been, you know, trying to catch up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is overwhelming.
No, I love the variety.
Yeah, I'm gonna go deeper.
Now your guides, spirit guides, do you change them each lifetime? They stay with you?
Oh, that's a really good question. So she said to you,
Spirit guides, do they change each lifetime, or do they stay with you? They stay with yourself.
yeah, so some of them will be with you all the way through, and other ones will change. So some will come and go, and then some of them might be with you for, like, you know, through the density, and then you've got to here and their job's done, and then you might have someone that you meet here that's highly evolved that then says, I'm going to come back and help you out since you're making that commitment to Earth. I'm going to be with you. And this is why, you know, like we come and go with each other as well. But what's happening now is more and more and more of us are coming together, right? And that's the other amazing thing about the last 2 years that could not have been predicted, is by isolating us and by separating us out from the flock, they've made it so much easier for us to find each other. It's, you know, like bonus, eh? Yeah.
Was it about?
Oh, she said, do we have the same guides through every lifetime, or do they change? Love it.
In this lifetime, I've noticed they actually change in this lifetime. I've had some really interesting experiences as I've gone through coming out the other side of that trauma or whatever it may be. That guide set that I've had actually has left me. I've actually met them and we've come together, held hands, and then met them. And the one in particular was really quite traumatic when they were left. And they no longer were needed by me on my next step, but then I was left on my own. That feeling of being left. And have you experienced that feeling of
Yes.
I'm on my own?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Yes.
difficult, and eventually they come in when you're ready, you're ready to move. And, yeah, I've experienced that. So there's a shift
Yeah.
in more in this lifetime experience than perhaps in the other lifetime.
Yeah.
I've had this feeling of like, oh, my God, I'm from here.
Yeah. And I actually, it's amazing you say that. I get that with remote viewers because I work with remote viewers. They always start off in a kind of training ground or a holding cell, and they've always got this guide, and they'll have one regular guide that works with them and babies them along and everything. And we're always working with that guide. And then when they reach a certain point, all of a sudden the guide's gone and they freak out. They're like, oh my God, where's he gone? He's not there, he's not there. And it's like, oh, you know, you've stepped up now. Like they're saying, okay, now you need to take more responsibility yourself. You need to, you don't need them as much. You've got to stop it. We don't need our hand held as much anymore.
I don't really literally see them, or when they were holding my hand, they appeared as people, but they're not. They're amazing different types of things. Future versions of us.
Hi, mister. Just moving you along. Bumpy ride. Bing, bing.
You got it. Yeah, that's how I've always kind of shared my experience with people. So that's the multidimensionality of the soul, isn't it? It's not a linear experience. It's very multidimensional.
Okay, so, so we come here to heal some of these scars, and we come here to bring light to dark ancestral lines. So often really powerful people will come through into big trauma. And it's because one, you've got loads of trauma on your soul line, and it's because you've also made a contract to bring light into the dark ancestral line. So what tends to happen first in our life is, we're in that rescuer thing, right? So we're growing up and we've got this family and we're always trying to fix things, and we're always trying to, we want them to be like us, because we are usually the black sheep in the family. And we want them to see it. We want them to expand, and even before we know what we're doing, we're trying to do that. And they're very resistant, because, we've made a contract to come into some dense ancestral lines because we're trying to move faster now. And so we come in and everything's external. Oh, let me fix that, let me help that, let me da 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 da. And then, the journey is slowly back to yourself, at which point you realize that the only work you can do is work on yourself. And then as soon as you start doing that work on yourself, the energy field around you starts to shift. Now, as more and more people are doing this work, because we've all got access, whether you're Nikki Rhodes or anyone else, it's honestly, every piece is helping. Every piece has significance, because we are all just trying to pull ourselves up, right? We're all just trying to be better people. Like, that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to ascend. And, 20 years ago, I was so stuck in my programs, like so stuck in my programs. Even though I had all this desire to heal, and even though I was doing all this healing, I was still stuck in my programs. And that's why I wasn't given my power properly until I was much older, because I just wasn't. And I just wasn't taking up the challenge. And so they just, pulled back. And they will do that. So, we come here to change our vibration. Now, as everyone in this room starts to change their vibration, imagine the electrical impulses that you're sending out as you're just walking, right? You're just walking and it's like ping, 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 ping. And it's affecting other people's energy field. And their energy field goes, whoa, what was that? And it has this little moment as it walks past. And the more and more people that are doing that, the more those electrical energy fields of, electromagnetic fields of other people are starting to be affected. And that's how the real healing happens, right? That's how it really happens. Because before that, all we're doing is we're still operating from our program. If we're trying to change someone else, we're still operating from our program. If we're judging someone else, we're still operating from our program. If we're saying, oh, that person's not up to speed, or that person's doing that, they are where they are. We're all just doing the best we can with what we've got in any given moment. We're all trying to get there. And some of us, it took me quite a long time, like, other people are moving really fast. And as the children come through, that's going like this, And I had this client come to me, this guy, a couple of months ago, and he just goes, he's this musician, and he's like, oh my God, Mel, I just remember coming to you about 3 years ago, and he said, you said to me, da da da, there's a quickening coming, prepare yourself. I've got no memory of saying that, but he really remembers me saying it, and he said, 6 months later, COVID came and everything else, and he said that now if you just let the speed that everything's moving is so overwhelming. He keeps remembering this comment, because we are speeding up now, and so this, you can get caught up in feeling that you're not moving fast enough with everything, right? And I get that too. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I need an online platform, and I need this, and I need that, and do I need a TikTok? Like, like, do I need a TikTok? And and then I have to just go, ooh, just hang on now, like you do you,
Yeah.
Yes. You just have to do you.
These are really good lines that I think all the time, which is do what's in front of you.
Do what's in front of
Do
you.
what's in front of you.
Brilliant.
Instead of like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
like you are being the change. You need to see it with us. So just do what's in front of you.
Yeah.
It'll shop. And then the more you do that, the more it'll shop.
That's right. And some of the people that are most affecting in terms of energy are literally just monks that sit around praying all day. They don't feel like they have to be out there with a TikTok account.
They've got a different place.
No, but you could walk, like I could be standing, you could be over by that big tree, and I could walk to here, and I will feel his energy field from here, right?
Yeah.
That's what they are exuding into the world. Those 13 boys in the cave, in the Thai cave, there with a Buddhist master, that kept them alive for 10 days with no food and no light. Like, this is the wonder of a serene energy field that we can hold in balance. And we need to stop feeling that we have to, that it's all about business, and that it's all about this huge projection of what we are meant to be in the material world, because that again is just back to the program. Right? We're actually here to decompress. We're actually here and we are here to allow ourselves to be, and that's it. And if all of us just got our energy field to that level of decompression, the entire planet would ascend simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's not seems to be particularly hard for people like us, because
Yes, we've got this need to
make a
yeah.
difference.
That's all.
Because we know why we need it, we should use the brain to continue with that.
Yeah. And then it gets really overwhelming. We get caught up in the speed.
Gotta just take it out.
Yeah, but you have to really pull yourself back from that. Like, sometimes I'm just sitting at home. Someone said to me, oh, you know, I'm spending it. No, what's wrong with me? I'm spending all this time just sitting there staring into space. I'm just thinking, amazing. I'm like, I spend a lot of time just staring into space as well.
themselves.
Yeah.
And it just had a very rush around. Yeah. And never change the world. It's the irony, like, what is actually. Yeah, it's some irony about that, it used to be human beings, but it's like human beings.
I love it. Human beings. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a bit of a permission to not be famous, you know? Because you do, you've got this urge, it's like, okay, now I've got a message, you know, I've got a message. And then it's like, you know, I'm not a guru, like, and you actually do, you know, now it's like, if a client cancels and I've got an hour in between clients, it's wonderful. I can't get in the bath. 2 o'clock, you know, my client for an hour, you know, everybody bath. You know, I don't sit there and think I'm gonna open an online platform. And you know, having that pressure taken off me is massive. You know, I had chronic fatigue for 6 years. I've had insulin problems, thyroid problems, back problems. You know, you get that because of all this pressure constantly on you to perform and to be all things to all people. And, you know, we need to let go of that. And we need to, you know, if we had no online presence, if we were all just living like this, if we took the internet out, we would be back to just living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
You screwed up, you really screwed up.
Yeah.
But it has given us the momentum that we needed.
Yes.
Yeah, to spread the word out, yeah, but it's actually done.
We are actually here to spread a message.
Yeah.
And I did
We
hear
are
that
here.
a lot of truth one time. We're like, okay, we've got the internet and now we've got social media, so we're all communicating all the time. And so with our humanity, we know we're going over here, so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so we need to have a journey to get from here to there, because if we're instantly telepathic and instantly manifesting, and we're all it's just spewing out, like if that happened to us immediately, it's gonna be absolute chaos.
That's right.
Whereas we're having to manage
Very good
ourselves
steps.
on social media in these ways, and we'll just mix that.
That's right. Yeah,
Eventually, when we get there,
that's right.
it's
We
gonna be
are
a
always
more aware,
skip steps, aren't
aware
we?
thing.
Yeah,
So it's
rushing.
sensible process.
The rushing woman. We are trying to skip steps. We just want to be at the finish line.
Yeah.
It's like,
Me too.
yeah, just show me the end.
Oh, when it's-
And I know where I'm going. Yeah.
Because we don't have manifestation.
And
But you get to go through the physical process.
Oh, I know.
yeah,
Such a drag.
yeah.
The thing that came to mind for me was I did psychology, and I know you did as well, and that was looking for answers. Then there's the whole counseling, psychotherapy, etc. And it's just, I don't know. I'm just thinking, what the hell was all that about? That whole bloody industry around trying to explain why you were just feeling so empty and why it wasn't working, and why the relationships were these, that, and the other. And yet all of a sudden there's this very simple picture, simple diagram that you just put up. And if we'd had that, I don't know if we'd been receptive. But you have no idea how long I've spent just trying to find out what the hell was going on. You know, just the layers and layers and layers, whereas actually what you had to do was just to go in to the core. And it just amazes me, there's a whole industry I mean, it's not as
Yeah,
relevant now, but
yeah.
at the time that I grew up, that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
Make money out of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, isn't it?
It's actually an industry that holds people away from
That's
you know,
right.
and that triggers them to stop.
Yeah.
I remember going to, when I first left my job, now I'm going to go and get some counselling, and my mother used to go to a counsellor, I'll pay for it. I'm like, what? So I can sit there and tell somebody a lot of shit, and they're not gonna get it, they don't really care,
Yeah.
and you're actually throwing good money away. So
Yeah.
it's a waste.
Well, you have some new modules coming through, like psychosynthesis is the only type of counselling that we do to clients. Psychosynthesis counselling. So I will only ever recommend someone goes to a psychosynthesis counsellor, and it is because of the specific way they're trained. It's the only type of counselling I've had for 20 years. If I go to a counsellor, I always look up a psychosynthesis counsellor.
What does it mean?
No.
What does it mean?
So they are, so first of all the way through their training, they're in therapy. So most of them, and they won't actually pass until they reach a level that their supervisors are happy with. So it's not like you pass an exam and you're now qualified. So some of them are going for 7 years before they're fully qualified.
Wow.
They're not going for 2 or 3, and they're certainly not doing a 1-year course. You know, which I just think is doing way more damage. You know, I get people coming to me all the time and being told unbelievable things by counsellors. But anyway, so they must have weekly therapy themselves. So I've got a friend, she's 10 years in. She is still, in order to be a member of the psychosynthesis, counselling association, she still has to have weekly sessions herself, and she has to have a high level person. She pays a lot of money to have the highest level of counselling from some of the world's top people, and so they are constantly doing the work, and I went through psychology. And when I looked at, and I started my master's, when I looked at everyone, that I was looking at, it was like, all they wanted to do was go out there and, tell everyone what was wrong with them. And it wasn't about their own self journey, because everything at the end of the day is about our own self journey. And I could feel something didn't feel right, which is why I left university and started on this other kind of, cycle of trying to understand things. Because the questions I had at university, everyone just looked at me like I was nuts. Like, I've always been interested, since as long as I can remember, I've always been fascinated by the study of happiness. And I would talk about this at university. Why don't we study happiness? Why don't we study what makes people happy? Why aren't we looking at the flip side of this? Why don't we understand where happiness comes from? And then, when we looked at all the drugs and stuff, it was like, yeah, but the placebo had, a 40% change. Like, why aren't we looking at this placebo? What is the placebo? Why aren't we understanding the power of our mind to believe that something is possible and make that change when it feels that something is coming in, even if it's not? Our brain is capable of creating change. And they were just like, what are you talking about? That's a placebo. We're talking about the drug, and I just couldn't get in, like, no one was answering my questions. And that's why I left university. So, everything that I do now comes from within. Like, I mean, of course, I like to learn from people as well. It's not like, but we have access to this cosmic knowledge within us, all of us, that is so vast. It's the Akashic library. There's nothing you can't find in the Akashic library. And it's so profound and sacred that, when you're looking at anything mainstream after, it's really hard to align it. And that's why I'm so happy that someone like Heidi is going into our mental health system, because she's taking in this different knowledge, she's taking in this different energy. And it's, it's a true gift, that's gonna plant seeds of change. And our education system has a lot of really unique teachers coming through now, and they're planting the seeds of change. But you cannot just end up at the finish line, because you wanna be there. You have to move in steps, right?
I just wanted to kind of quantify a little bit what I was thinking, was even though it's an industry that has how it bears and got people reaching, what it does to with the tenacity of humanity, because humanity will find, even though there's all programs that are created to people apart from our knowledge, you can't stop a good human from helping another human. So, so even though I say, I sound like that's a cynical way of looking at it in a sense, I don't believe for a second that there's not already wonderful people like, they're just too few.
Well, actually, that's a really interesting point. And in psychological studies, you can make a good person bad. And they've done it by doing things like having people, they've done the prison experiment, which was really freaking interesting. And they've done the experiment where they basically get someone so they'll put a volunteer behind a screen, and they'll say to me, okay, Mel, you're going to ask this person some questions. They can't see you. It's one-way glass. You can see them, but they can't see you. And then if they get the question wrong, you can give them a little shock. And the person in the other room knows they're going to get a shock if they get it wrong, and they've agreed to be part of this experiment. Right, so they're sitting there, one-way glass, can't see the person. I'm sitting there giving them a little shock, and as they go along, as their answers, more and more wrong answers, and they start to get nervous, I start to enjoy my bit of power, and I start to turn the shock up a bit, and I turn it up a bit. And these are really nice, lovely, normal people like us, but they suddenly they get this little taste of wanting to see what happens. Now, if you took that glass away, when they took the glass away and the person could see you, I would stay real low. Yeah. So you can make a good person behave very badly. And
secret, I guess.
well, if we think we can get away with it. Look, we have an advanced brain that is capable of choice. But when we've been in this density for so long, and we've been born into competition and comparison, and we've been programmed so deeply, it's quite tempting sometimes to see what we can get away with. This is why, we have affairs. This is why we have addiction. This is why we have, in the beginning of addiction, you're hiding so much, right? Everything is very sneaky. You get really clever.
We think you're sneaky, but
you're not. Yeah, you think you're sneaky.
Eric doesn't try because he knows I'm
Well, it's amazing. What you think you can get away with, and what you try and do when you think you can get away with it, if you are stuck in your program. So I might be a good person, but I've done dumb shit, right? Lots of it. And I've done loads of things I regret that I wish I hadn't done. But I've done them, and I did them because I was half ascending and half of my program. I was here like this, right? I was on the seesaw, and that's that in-between bit of the kind of sinkhole growth stage. The self-discovery. When you come into self-discovery, you're like, oh, I'm actually a good person. I'm a good person. Oh, that's really tempting, And so you're still, if I'm still trying to get external validation from a guy, then I'm still going to be tempted to kind of, pop back here and get a little ego fluff, and then pop back here and be a good person. You see what I mean? It's not straight cut. It's a journey. And we have to love ourselves at every part of that journey. I have to go, oh shit, I walked over there and I got a bit of an ego fluff. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. I'm still a good person. I'm still on the path, I'm still going the right direction. You know, like I have to be able to say that to myself, otherwise I'm here and I'm being a good person and I go back and I get an ego block and I come back here and I'm like, damn it, I screwed up, I hate myself, I'm so stupid. You know, and it's like, I'll send myself straight back down. So you have to be able to stand here and seesaw a bit and love yourself anyway.
I have a question. Okay, so we think about addiction, right? So I can think about myself because I'm completely open about my story, but I had a privileged upbringing, you know, like I didn't have any childhood trauma, I didn't grow up in the streets, whatever, you know, I was very privileged. And then I went into addiction, and I feel like part of my addiction was that I wanted to say fuck you to my parents, right? That was a huge part of it because of, I don't even know. But do you think that every single person is susceptible to like addiction? You know, is it with the way that we get told about it is that, well, you guys are addicts, right? So you know, you guys are addicts. And you're a special breed, you're different to everybody else. But I feel like that's just again.
I think that's a really outdated
I think it's more programmed
code.
to
That's more
keep
programmed.
us in this.
And I find it fascinating that in 50 years of, how long's AA been around? 150.
Yeah.
Okay, in 150 years, there has been nothing else.
Yeah.
It's not the whole system.
Yeah.
There's been no alternative.
No.
There's been no other major alternative to AA. Yeah,
No, like, and the thing is that you repeatedly say, hello, I'm Charlotte, I'm an addict. Hello, I'm Charlotte, I'm an alcoholic. So I'm constantly confirming that.
Yeah. Your identity becomes
So June said something that night that was really insightful about addiction is based on a breach, didn't he? He said it was a breach of attachment. So it's like that's, you know, that thing that what brings us back to a sense of completion within ourselves and actually starts off with, you know, that sense of our maternal mother. And so it's a breach of attachment that's happened, so we're trying to fill that void, as you're saying. I don't think we come in with that because of our lack of remembrance of who we are.
That's, you know, you'll have this down the soul line, right?
Yeah.
That'll be down the soul line.
Some sort of addiction, whether it be substance addiction.
Yeah, and addiction is basically a lack of connection.
Yeah.
Like
That's
that's,
the worst thing we can do is isolate, which
Yeah.
is what they used to
So
say.
what
"Well,
is
that?
I can't be around you while you've got an addiction going on, you know, so we isolate them and push them through this addiction. So it's an attachment thing.
well, I think you need to understand love to come out of addiction. And it's self-love, right? Because when we get a shot of something and we suddenly feel amazing, it's like, I feel connected. I feel connected, you know, it's like, wow. And you love that feeling. You realize you've been looking for that feeling. You've been wanting to feel connected, and maybe you didn't feel connected with mum and dad, and this, and you didn't have that, that attachment.
It's connection to a sense of who we really are. That's the biggest breach. It's that stuff here, we come through this.
And then we have this drive and it makes us feel up and excited and amazing. It's like, oh, I'm home. I feel skinny. Yeah, my life is over. And I have nothing right now.
So recovery from addiction can bring you back in touch with them.
Yeah.
Right, and if I hadn't gone through, I have gone through, right, yeah, right.
Yeah. Right, that to be a big old messy hole in order to. Okay, let's break for morning tea. Okay.
No, he's on track. Yeah.
Right. So everyone just find a comfy position.
These all fix us sort of like knowing, okay, what's the alignment? Oh, yeah.
Might be like that.
It's like, it's that part. No, bed. That's all coming into alignment, but surrounding it. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. So just everyone to lie down now. Yeah.
Space, and you want to this way or that way, so you feel like getting things up here. You get so close to your. I'm good. Gonna go. You're gonna want to stretch out. You want me to go? Take a look at this now.
Really good. But I still got to share this with me. It's changing. You have to get it out. I'll get all this one makes you gonna be.
Okay. Lie down. Relax. Find your peaceful place. No, it's not. I want to. Yeah. Onaya, it's going to imagine a rope filled with meditation. Flatland. I'm going to take hold of that rope. It's nice and secure and safe. We're going to just start a journey back in time. Start releasing. Back in time, back in time. Back to childhood. All the reignited soul line wounds. Back to the birth now. Through the birth canal to space. Again between.
Follow the platinum road. It will guide you home. Down to the straight road. That beautiful thick cord. Take you back through each line. Back. Maybe these energies will come. Feelings. Maybe a lifetime has shown to you. When you observe it. And on each side of you are celestials, beautiful angelics, guiding you gently and safely. And maybe you're taken to another planet. Maybe your mission is revealed to you. Maybe you're taken to the time before. And you were allowed to be fully in your power. And your power was welcomed and honored as it should be. By the angelics of the ancestors of the transitional spirit force. They assist you in the crossing over of dimensions and realms. To get from one place to another, you must cross the in-between. The ancestors of your guides as well. Focus on the words I forgive. I forgive. All the words that I forgive.
So fun. It's so good. Able to see the journey, not just here. Sometimes in between. I deserve to exist.
I am strong. I am powerful. I am alchemist. I will no longer feed the wolf that does not love me. I will no longer compromise my integrity. I will honor others only as much as I honor myself. I will put no one before me. No, I will not even before me. Put no one before me. Soul one, pure one. Self one. Yeah.
Focus on the words permission granted. Permission granted to destroy or dismantle any programs that have brought me from my power or access to my higher self, or that have not served my greater good. Imagine those programs dissolving, releasing. I am free. I am free. I am free. National glasses close. The Catholic can be no violence. Until close and protection. Take a deep breath. And get out your soul line, following that beautiful threaded cord. That space, that in between, that at the crown. There, into this lifetime. Keep following it, back to the present, back to this moment.
move your body slightly. Feeling back into the physical form. And really taking a moment to gently adjust. There's some very big energy surgery thing, some very big remembering and activation. It's going to take a while for your body to process. Really allow yourself to be wherever you're at and come back. Feel the gentle your body to absorb. Moving through the frequency you're currently at, activating the frequency. So be gentle with yourself and coming with. Be kind to yourself. And lots of water. Give your body food that nourishes it. And start the process of truly honoring all that you are, and all that you give to the world simply through being. Just by existing on this planet, you are bringing life. All other precious off. And remember, in the stillness of nothing, something happens. And to just be still. You don't always have to achieve them. You do. There's a couple of things that it's mentioned I think will come here. Because some of you are starting to work in a very multi-dimensional way. And for those of you that already have been, you don't need to do this because you already do it. But for those of you who are coming into these realms, just remember two things: protection and consent. You are always in control of yourself in the ether and in the physical world, and you will be challenged equally in both. So whatever challenges you have in the physical realm, be it with boundaries or no's or anything else, you will receive these same challenges in the etheric realms with the energies that you're working with. And it is essential that you learn how to protect yourself with shields, with light, with prayer, with mantra, and that you learn how to say no. That you do not fold yourself into every single energy that comes your way just because it's exciting and new. Not everything has your best interests at heart. And you will be taught mastery in the etheric as well as the physical realms. And you always have the right to say no to an energy that is coming in. And that is even if you are just feeling energy or psychic attack or entities It doesn't matter where you are at on the journey, you will only ever level up when you learn how to protect yourself and how to control your permissions. Permission given, permission denied into your energetic realms. You always have the right to say no in the etheric realm, just as you do in the physical. But when you protect yourself with prayer, you're much less likely to encounter this. So the best thing you can always do is to keep prayer, intention, sacred ritual strong in your life. Because you are all multi-dimensional, powerful beings that are here on this earth. And you all have access to all these realms. Stop the recording.